Okay, we're back. Happy Thursday, everybody, for the last opportunity in our series. We are here today to talk with Samantha Banerjee and close out our local leaders and rising stars. When I first started thinking about doing this, I don't know, 4 or 5 months back, so I usually start thinking, and we usually start thinking about like what the next series is in advance of the previous series closing. One of the things that's been so amazing to me over the course of the past 18 months is just how many leaders we have, people we have in our community who are continuously on a daily basis stepping up to make the lives of our community members and neighbors better, and most of them don't get a spotlight. I mean, of course, during election season, depending upon how contested those elections are, we go from the top down, and we have a couple of really big contested elections this year. But there are so many folks who are helping us in our community, raising important issues that are important to all of us, and really trying to represent us in different ways. And that was the purpose of this series. And I just so appreciate so many of you tuning in over the course of the series to hear a little bit more about them. And hi, for those I haven't met yet, I'm Kevin. I'm a husband, the father of three, a Bedford resident, born and raised New Yorker, Democrat, good government advocate, and healthcare policy expert. I think days like this, it's now more important than ever that we know who our messengers are and that we're as transparent as possible about where we come from and the biases we hold, earned or otherwise. And those are my three kids in some sort of disarray on one day as we enter early summer here. The purpose of this series and the purpose of what I'm doing here, what we're doing here, is to equip New Yorkers living in the lower Hudson Valley, New York 17, with information about the issues impacting our communities, including helping us to identify how we can get involved and who we really want to represent our concerns and values in government. We're discussing the issues, we're fostering community, and we're introducing you to candidates, people who are hoping to step up and represent us, helping to point out the distinctions between them for you to ultimately make your most informed decision. And we did so all of last year into early this year. We interviewed our Democratic candidates, and I had the pleasure and privilege of getting to know so many of them. Beth Davidson, Kate Conley, Mike Sachs, Effie Phillips Staley, John Capello are all still in the primary and all still running. And that primary ends in 12 days, guys. 12 days. Early voting starts on Saturday, this Saturday, June 13th. Do you have a plan? I actually think I might have a plan, thanks to an interview we had a couple of weeks ago. So the more to come on that. But I hope you do. Get out to vote early. Bring a friend. Bring a couple of friends. Get others to get out and vote. Educate them based upon what you know about the candidates. This is a really important election coming up this November, and picking our Democratic candidate to go up against Congressman Mike Lawler couldn't be more important. Again, our Local Leaders and Rising Stars series has been an absolute pleasure, as it's allowed me to get to know, along with you, so many leaders across our district, from Emily, plus one from America, Courtney Fields, Empire State Voices, Jan Merchandani from Yorktown, Brett Yaris, Putnam County, Eric Marmon, Town of Newcastle, and potentially my voting buddy, Tom Abenanti, despite hilarious it was a beautiful disaster of an interview last week if you hadn't seen it. But my gosh, is he a powerhouse and an institution in the town of Mount Pleasant? And I can't wait to see how his campaign goes. And then again today with Samantha. But before we bring Samantha on, one other thing we introduced with a nod to Amy Poehler, I have to be honest here, is actually to have some folks who know the person we're interviewing introduce themselves, talk about their backgrounds, and then also introduce the interviewee. And today we're really lucky to have Selena Guerra. Selena is a lawyer and former prosecutor, a Texas transplant who now calls Westchester County, New York home. She's a proud mom of twin boys, and she's recently dived into local civic life, serving on the steering committee of the Westchester Progressives and stepping in as an incoming Democratic district leader in Bedford, where I am so happy and pleased to have her as a compatriot. Selena, it's nice to see you.
Hi, Kevin. So great to see you.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great.
You have I keep always forget that you have twin boys.
Yeah, no, it's a struggle. It's a daily struggle. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it. I wouldn't change it for anything, but my God, from the word go, from the second we learned that we were having twins, it's been a whirlwind. So I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
How old are they now?
They're 5.
Oh my goodness. Well, they're not sitting still.
No, God. Oh man. Uh, I mean, my mom's visiting and she took them
Uh-huh.
to Muscoot Farm and they were just running around. And I just don't know how they still had so much energy when I met them for lunch. It's just
Mhm.
absolutely crazy. Actually, I do know where they got the energy. They took it from me. So
There. I don't know, but you must have like an eternal like a well to pull from because every time I see you, you are on your game and ready to go. And so it's so nice to see you as part of the Democratic Bedford community and just part of our community in general. What made you choose like to live in the area, come to Northern Westchester?
That's funny. It was actually kind of a happy accident, I guess.
Hmm.
As you said, I'm a Texas native originally. I'm from a place called the Rio Grande Valley in very far South Texas. I had gone to law school, met my husband, and then I was a prosecutor at the Manhattan DA's office. And then COVID happened. And then during COVID, I got pregnant with twins, and that was quite the curveball. And we sort of realized, oh my gosh, this is going to be incredibly difficult. So we kind of packed up and we moved to Texas. We were there with my parents, and they helped us out for the first year of the twins' lives. And it was wonderful, but also while I was there, I literally lost rights. Standing on Texas soil, Roe v. Wade got overturned, and obviously, we really wanted to come back to New York for a lot of reasons. And, we were looking around for where to land. And I had heard so many good things about Westchester County. So we were looking there, and we just happened, I literally found the place where we now live on Zillow. And,
Hmm.
we were like, let's go for it. We'll rent there. And we packed up, we picked up the kids, and we moved all the way over here. We loved that it was really close. We live very close to the Katona train station,
Hmm.
and I saw like all the little shops in town. It looked really adorable. It has very Stars Hollowy type of feel, I guess. When we first got here, I admit I definitely had my head down because I had 1-year-old twins. But it's been such a wonderful, wonderful place to live. Our neighbors are fantastic. We joke. My next door neighbor is my kid's fairy godmother, and the schools are fantastic, right? I mean, just everything about the community. Like I said, the little shops in town, being able to just hop a train into the city. It's been amazing, and we really love it here. It's been a great place to raise kids.
Take that, Texas. We
Sorry,
got one.
guys. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
get your shit together, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like, and it seems as though like as you then started getting very heavily involved in and taking responsibility for civic duties. Like what drove you to start getting more involved in the community and really kind of speaking up on issues of importance?
Honestly, the original thing that really got me involved probably had to do with the 2024 loss. Obviously, that was
Hmm.
pretty dramatic for the Democrats in particular, and just kind of realizing that I don't have my finger on the pulse of this as well as I think I do. That was the initial reaction that I had,
Hmm.
and trying to understand it and figure out how we could actually, be pushing a platform that can bring people to us and ensuring that we're listening to people when they say that we're not hearing them. All of those things really made me feel like I should get more involved, that I should try and see what I could do to build connections and to build coalition, and to whatever extent I can be a canary in a coal mine, trying to, ensure that people are trying to listen and understand when we maybe need to change direction or
Yeah.
question, our way of thinking. I think that's something that I've been trying to bring to the table. I don't know how much I successfully do it, but I think there are a lot of people that don't have a lobbyist, and to the extent that I can go into rooms and lobby for those people, I think that's a really important thing.
Absolutely. And ever since I met you, like, I mean, you've really just impressed me and helped to even start to shape some of my thinking in challenging how we're presently thinking, and whether that is the best way to get to our shared desired outcome. And it leads me to my a question of, like, what does it mean to you to be a progressive, and what does it mean to be a Democrat? And are those two things the same thing, or is one kind of an aspiration or a challenge to think about things a little bit differently?
Well, that's a very good question. I think why am I the so
Yeah.
being a Democrat, that's kind of easy. I mean, we are
Hmm.
the party that's actually fighting for the people, and the contrast with the Republicans right now just couldn't be starker. I mean, they're renditioning people to war zones. They're trying to rip healthcare away from millions of people, handing the country over to billionaires, going after all of the institutions that hold our democracy together and that make our country great. So that is obvious for me. I will also say I'm a lifelong Democrat. I really think at our best we fight for the people, and we can really do that with our full chest. Regarding progressivism, I think it's more of a recognition that, I hear people say both sides are the same. They're not the same. I think I've already laid out all of the rationales for why. That said, when people say that, I can't just tell them, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I can certainly educate them and go through all of those things that I just mentioned, but we can't just ignore them, because
Hmm.
their perspective is their perspective, regardless of whether or not it's accurate or whether or not it's the best retelling of exactly what's happening. And so I think when I think of progressivism, I think about the fact that people need to see us actually pushing pushing the needle, really fighting for them and making clear that the people that we serve are the people, not the oligarchs, not the
Hmm.
billionaires, not moneyed interests. We need
Hmm.
to be representing the people, and I think that's where progressivism does shine. I think being a progressive, and the time that I finally said, you know what, I'll pick up the banner. I'm a
Yeah.
progressive.
Yeah.
Was the idea of just progress. Like, we need progress. We need forward progress, and we need to be able to show people that we're unabashedly fighting for them in those terms. And I think that is so needed right now. And I want to be clear. I don't even necessarily think that all Democrats need to be pushing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. I think that people work best in tandem when people are maybe tackling different issues. That said, I think we need to be very clear-eyed about what we're trying to achieve ultimately, and I think progressives do that the most. They're the most forward-looking, where they'll say, sure, I understand we're doing a little bit at a time, or we need to handle XYZ, but we have to be pushing, we have to be driving, and I feel like progressivism does that.
That's so well said. And I threw in the chat, like, the link to westchesterprogressives.org, which I know you're affiliated, and hopefully folks who are interested can reach out. Before I do want to kind of talk about Samantha and how you met, and what perspective you think that she brings to these conversations. But election season is upon us. 12 days to the primary. Are there candidates that you're looking at, to potentially get your vote?
Yeah, I'm supporting Effie Phillips Daly for Congress. I think she is an incredibly genuine person. I honestly, it's funny because she wasn't even my first choice initially.
Hmm.
I initially was for Peter Chatsky,
Hmm.
but after one thing I will say is I have met all of the
Yeah.
candidates, and uh, to their chagrin, I've questioned them pretty aggressively, and that includes Effie. And I actually went to, I think it was the immigration forum, and was trying to speak to her afterwards. And she was talking; she was engrossed in conversation with somebody who really wanted her ear, and I just didn't really have time. And I started walking away. And then when I was in the atrium of the building about to leave, I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and it was her. And she had pulled away from the conversation she said, I'm so sorry, I saw that you were waiting for me. And I actually I've pushed her on a lot of things. I really have. I really try to kick the tires on her and figure out what she's about. And she is very genuine. I think she has the best policies by far. I've honestly, I haven't heard anybody say that she doesn't have, best policies. I think, people somehow don't think that they're realistic, but I think we make them realistic. We realize them by pushing them and by saying, we can make this happen. We have to just not take no for an answer. And I think Effie is not going to compromise on anything. I think she absolutely is representing, the issues that are populist, progressive, that are polling well across the country, and everybody seems to like them. And that's it. I'm behind her. I think that that's what we need to be presenting.
Well, Effie is lucky to have your support. She's also just a wonderful human being, I know that she's glad to have your vote. So as we think about other wonderful human beings who are helping to change our world and drive our thinking, Samantha. So when we think about Samantha, like when did you first meet her, and like what were your first impressions of her?
Oh man. So I first met Samantha. It's funny because I technically haven't known her that long, but I feel like I know her very well. We spend a lot of time together and talk a lot about some very deep issues constantly. I met her at actually the Bedford Democratic holiday party back in December. I walked in. It was the first time I had gone to any Bedford Democratic Committee events, so I didn't know anybody. And I'm showing up at their party, and it's dark, and people are like, talking quietly, amongst each other. And people are looking at me like, who is this new person? Right away, I sort of like looked around, and I think Sam kind of clocked me, and we just started chatting, and I think her kids were there, if I recall correctly, as well. And she just immediately started, talking about that, telling me all about the schools. She was an incredible resource straight off the bat, in terms of, explaining how the whole process works, explaining who the people are and what the issues are and the stakeholders. And like I said, I had very much had my head down because of the twins, but she really knows what she's talking about when it comes to this area. She is just plugged in ways that I can't even describe. And honestly, like it's incredible how many things she's involved in and helping with. She's quite the asset, I think, for our community.
She is, and she's kind of broadened our community in all sorts of amazing ways. Brought in new folks to the fold.
Oh, yeah.
But like, and what perspective, from your point of view, do you think she brings to a lot of these conversations and arguments that we have on a regular basis?
I think Sam is so sincere, for one, and I think that is something that we really, really need. I think we need to be having very frank conversations with each other. I also think she's a mom. She has kids in the school district, and she's a millennial, which, I really just the need for millennials to step up into the political sphere, to step up and be leaders in our community. I think, millennials have had kind of a rough shake, but
no,
right? So I understand,
from crisis
right?
To crisis, yeah.
I mean, right. So I understand why, to some extent, we've abdicated our responsibility at, but politically, that needs to end, and I'm seeing it end I'm seeing it being smashed apart, honestly, in spectacular fashion by individuals like you yourself and Sam. And I think, the more that we get some of these younger voices speaking up and speaking to issues that affect, for example, our children, that right, we're obviously, once I had kids, I was no longer just thinking about, the next 40 years of my life. Like, no, now I'm planning out for however long their lifespan is, and what is the world that I'm handing down to them. And I think that those are really important ways of looking at the world that Sam obviously brings to the table.
You too, my friend. So as we bring Sam up, what is one question you'd want me to ask her?
how does she find the time? Honestly, I just no, really. I was trying to think of it, but like she is everywhere,
Hmm.
everywhere. I can't even describe it. You know, she's in Albany fighting, you know, for push.
Hmm.
She recently came to Westchester Progressives meeting and has been involved with Westchester Progressives. And, you know, she's obviously in the Bedford Democrats. I watched her get sworn in as a new district leader. And, you know, I just,
Twice, I think, right?
then,
Like,
right,
didn't we get
right.
to do
And
that? Yeah.
she has kids, right? Like she just constantly she hosted an event yesterday for Plus One for America, right? She
Hmm.
there was a watch party for like a Knicks game, and I just how is she doing all of this? So that's my question. Somebody said
That.
she needs to be cloned. Please, that'd be amazing. Amazing. We'd get everything done if we just had more Sams.
You know what? I'm going to call an audible, and we're just going to bring Sam up and ask her that question directly.
Do it.
Sam, how do you find the time?
How?
I have to give all the credit to my mom and my husband who pick up a lot of slack around here. I don't know how I would do it without them. Also, I don't sleep very much. Probably should change as I'm getting older here. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So Selena, thank you for coming on and introducing Sam, and thank you so
Thank
much for
you,
being such an
Selena.
active, like smart participant and leader in our community. We're so lucky to have you.
Well, thank
So
you very
lucky.
much for thanks guys, but also thank you. Yeah, we're just gonna just big group hug. No, truly, you guys are doing some great work, and I'm just really happy that I met y'all and that we're, you know, working together and trying to make this world a better place for our kids and for everybody.
We're just getting started. Talk soon.
Good night.
So Sam, now I'm gonna embarrass you and read your bio because like you've done so much and it is so impressive. And again, you are just such an amazing young leader in our district and in our state. Samantha Banerjee is a mom, political activist, and maternal health advocate from Katona. In addition to her work leading the movement to end preventable stillbirth as co-founder and executive director of the national nonprofit Push for Empowered Pregnancy, Sam is an avid beach reader, a do-it-yourself enthusiast, which is going to come in very handy in my life as my friend because I am not an animal lover, science fiction trilogy author, which I really would like to talk about at some point, and then has been featured in the Washington Post, ProPublica, ABC News, Today, Fox 5 New York, and most recently the New York Times for spiritedly taking on our congressional representative Mike Lawler at one of his town halls. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's really an honor.
It's always a lot of fun to have you. So ordinarily on these interviews, I talk with politicians and folks who are running for office about their journeys and their values and what's pressing them to aspire to higher office. In this instance, you are aspiring to change systems and elevate issues and minds, and it all started with your extraordinarily personal journey. Could you tell me a little bit about your journey to Bedford and Katona and what brought you to found Push?
Okay, sure. So yeah, I moved to Katona in 2012. It was a year after Deep and I had gotten married. We had like the most amazing wedding. I still think it's the best wedding I've ever been to. And you know, we found this adorable house which we got out of steel. It needed a lot of work. But it gave me a blank canvas to really make our own. And, you know, we had just moved back. We met at Microsoft when we were interns, after junior year of college. So we lived in Seattle for a few years after college. We moved back. You know, I changed careers. I used to be a program manager at Microsoft, on the engineering side. Actually, I was working on Xbox for a while, which was super
Cool.
fun.
Yeah.
But I just quickly realized that I am not cut out for a 9 to 5 job. Like having to be somewhere every day at the same time, like makes me feel like a caged animal. So I figured if I'm not going to be happy at Microsoft, something's got to give here. So
Yeah.
when we moved back to New York, I transitioned to my first love, which was writing. And I started a small business working with other small businesses in Westchester who needed reliable, like, marketing materials, website copy, that kind of thing. And then that gave me actually enough free time that I also was able to write my trilogy. So
What is the trilogy? We need to look it
it's
up
called the
right now.
Stitch trilogy. The first book is Stitch. It's under my maiden name, Samantha Durante. But yes, you will find it's on Amazon. I wrote the first book that in 2012. It came out right before our wedding, actually. And then I wrote the second one while the first year that we were living here. And God, our life was just picture perfect. I remember one day, like, literally, we were driving back from the farmer's market, and I just started crying because I was just like, how am I so lucky to have this as my life? Like, this is my community, this is my house, this is my husband. Like, and I was just, and we were just starting to try to get pregnant at that point. And I was just like, I don't know, for us, and we were lucky. We got pregnant quickly and easily, which I know now is not the case for the vast majority of people.
Yeah.
And, for us, having a child, especially, for me as an eldest daughter, having my eldest daughter that I've always dreamt of, she was like the icing on the cake. She was the pinnacle of just like everything in our life coming together exactly the way I had always wanted it to. And I just felt so incredibly blessed. And the pregnancy was easy. It was perfect. It was blissful. I'm intense about everything that I do. So of course I read, I read every book, blog, website I could get my hands on. I took a 10-week birthing course. I really honestly thought I knew everything there was to know about pregnancy. And everything had been textbook the entire time. I mean, literally, I was told those exact words over and over again, textbook, until 2 days before her due date, when we walked into the hospital in labor, thinking we're finally bringing home our baby girl, the first grandchild on both sides of our family, who was so loved and anticipated. She had 2 baby showers thrown in her honor. My brothers used to sit with their hands on my belly for hours to feel her kick. Like, we just, we thought that was about to be the everything. And it was it. And instead we walked in only to be told she no longer had a heartbeat. And it just, I mean, talk about a roller coaster. That's how Deep always describes it. It's like you go in expecting the happiest day of your life, and then you find out it's actually about to be the worst. And we had no idea this could happen to anyone in this day and age, let alone to us, with every privilege and advantage at our disposal, and who had done everything right. We did everything we were supposed to do, right down to my freaking prenatal yoga and eating all the organic foods. I just remember we called my mom, we called my parents. Of course, the whole family knew I was in labor, was waiting for the good news, come to the hospital all the time. But instead we had to tell them that she was gone. And I just remember my mom saying over and over again, that's impossible. That's impossible. And I'm just like, I know it's impossible, but this is what they're telling me. And honestly, for me, that the next 24 hours are very much a blur. I kind of just like went into crisis mode, I guess. I know now that I'm extremely good in a crisis, because I could just focus on what needs to be done and I do it. So in this case, it was giving birth. And, it was interesting because Deep seemed to grasp that, I think, quicker than I did. I'll never forget the sound of him just crying no over my shoulder when they told us, because he realized right away that I was still going to have to go through labor and birth, and we were not going to be coming home with our baby. And like, he was just like, it's so unfair. It's so unfair that you still have to do this. But this is stillbirth. This is why we say at Push, stillbirth is still birth, because, you know, this is a stillbirth is defined medically as the loss of a pregnancy after 20 weeks of gestation in the United States. And so this is a baby that's at least halfway along, and about 50% of stillbirths at term. You know, these are within weeks of being full term. So, you know, she was 6.5 pound baby. She still had to come out. They don't just disappear. And so, yeah, that was the story of our journey. You know, we delivered. I, you know, stayed in the hospital. 14 hours later, we delivered Alana. She came out. She was just absolutely perfect and beautiful. She looked like she was sleeping. Like, I just couldn't believe that she wasn't going to breathe, and that we were going to have to leave her there. And, you know, 24 hours after we showed up at the hospital, we were leaving with her empty car seat rattling in the back seat, and going out into a world that looked exactly the same, but had turned completely upside down for us. It was shocking, to say the least. So yeah, so that's how I ended up here.
So Alana, so you went home after that, and then what happened between then and then the moment you started learning that you weren't alone in this, and that this happens more frequently than any of us really know about?
Yeah. So again, I'm somebody who I wanted answers. And so I started researching immediately. Like, I think Alana was born on a Saturday, and by Monday I was Googling, you know, the cause of death listed on her fetal death certificate, which was just intrauterine fetal demise, which literally just means she's dead. So completely useless information. But that was literally the first time that I heard the word stillbirth over 9 months of pregnancy. And what I learned was that stillbirth is happening in 1 in 175 pregnancies in the United States. So, like, yes, that's less than 1%. It seems like rare, right? But when you actually take a step back and look at the numbers, it's the leading cause of child death in the United States. Stillbirth is not counted, by the way, in infant mortality numbers. So we talk a lot about maternal mortality. We talk a lot about infant mortality. No one ever talks about fetal mortality, and that's what stillbirth is. In stillbirth, there's the same number of babies lost to stillbirth as we lose to infant mortality. So you basically
that's crazy.
Double those numbers. And you know, so it's been 4 decades, over 20,000 deaths a year. That's 65 every day. So imagine a full school bus, or 3 kindergarten classes every single day that we're losing in this country. It's literally more child deaths per CDC data up to age 14 than prematurity, SIDS, drowning, guns, fire, poison, flu, listeria combined.
Why do you think we're not talking about this as much as we should be talking about this?
There's a lot of reasons that we're not talking about it. Number one is just this sense of fatalism. You know, people think there's a lot of misconceptions, honestly, even amongst medical professionals, that, oh, these are all babies who were very, very sick, or these are moms who didn't take care of themselves, or moms who didn't have access to care, or, you know, I mean, one of the first events we did as Push was the New York City onesie walk. So there's 900 stillbirths just in the 5 boroughs of New York every year. So one of the first things that we did was we got people to donate 900 onesies, one to represent, you know, newborn size. That's the size the babies are. One to represent everyone in New York City for a year, strung them on a clothesline, which stretched 2.5 Manhattan City blocks. And we marched it 5 miles from Central Park down to City Hall. We made 80 something street crossings in Manhattan and managed not to get run over. Um,
That in itself is a feat.
that was, I won the trust of many people on our team that day because I kept insisting that it was going to be okay, and they did not
Yeah.
believe me, and it was okay.
Trust in Samantha.
But yeah, I mean, and it's just, it was so revealing because, you know, we're walking down the street carrying these onesies, and I'm yelling things out like facts about stillbirth and stuff. And what I noticed was that, so I was saying something like, stillbirth happens even in healthy, low risk pregnancies like mine. It wasn't until I hit the like mine that people would look up from their phones and be like, huh. And then they'd be like, huh,
Yeah.
like shocked. And like, you know, and it's New York, so people will tell you what they're thinking. And, you know, some of the comments we got, like, there was one guy, you know, we'd stopped in, I think it was Washington Square Park, to get for a quick break. And he was talking to us, and we were telling him about what we were there for. And he was just like, oh my God, that is so sad. That must only happen to poor people, right? And I was just like, no, it happened to me and every parent on this line behind me. Oh, that's my mother-in-law. Hi, Ma, love you. For 2.5 blocks. And he was just dumbfounded. Like his jaw hit the floor. He's like, how is this possible? You know, another one, somebody yelled out at us, stillbirth, isn't that from the Middle Ages? Because when you hear about stillbirth, where do you see it? You know, Game of Thrones, right? Like you never hear about this happening, even though it's happening to 65 families every single day in this country. And my favorite was the guy who yelled, what did the mom do wrong? Because that's the thing that's in the back of most people's minds. Most people won't say it out loud to you, but there is a massive amount of stigma still associated with stillbirth and with pregnancy loss in general, particularly stillbirth, because everyone thinks that once you make it through the first trimester, right, you're in the safe zone. And so, you know, what causes a baby to die later in pregnancy, if it's not a, you know, sick baby, then who did something wrong here, right? And unfortunately, that stigma and that shame is so pervasive that us as parents, like we feel it. I don't know a single stillbirth mom who doesn't have a 4-page list of all the things that she must have done to cause her baby's death. Because when you know, go in and you're told, first of all, the majority of families never get answers. And so you're told, you know, you are healthy, the baby's healthy, the doctors did everything they were supposed to do. You know, what else is there to blame, right? Like,
So
I must have done something wrong.
So what do you think are the causes or the things that we can change in our system? And then how does that like relate or drive you to create push? And
yeah, so for me, I mean, and I think again, this is really common. It took several years for me to even begin to process what we had been through and live again. I mean, and we were lucky. You know, we got pregnant with my son Kieran like 6 months later. He was born 2 weeks after Alana's first birthday. And, you know, a few years down the road, you know, pregnancy after loss is harrowing. And so it took us a while to build up the courage to give another go. But we were, again, really lucky again to have another easy from a medical standpoint, not from an emotional,
psychological
one pregnancy, and have my second daughter, Mia. And, you know, for me, I think what started it was that pregnancy after loss journey, because all of a sudden now I'm kicked up into high risk care, right? And, you know, I always say the care that I received in those pregnancies was worlds away from what I had gotten in my first, when I was considered, you know, low risk. And I just couldn't stop thinking, like, why did I have to pay for this with my child's life? Like, that's not fair. Like, why didn't Alana get the same level of care? Every baby deserves the best level of care, to deserve the best chance. Like, why do we wait until one kid dies, until I have to put one child in the ground before we take the lives of their siblings? Seriously. I mean, this is ridiculous. And, yeah, I mean, and so, you know, that I started asking questions. Ooh, Anna, good one. So this is Anna. She's another one of our push founders and the other half of my brain, I say. Also the reason why I get so much done. Because she's helping me with everything on the back end and doing many more things herself. But yeah, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Our medical system is built for profit. It is not built for results. And the fact of the matter is, in the way that things are set up right now, we are deliberately keeping our standard of care as low as possible because OBGYNs are so likely to get sued. And so if they practice medicine in the same way, that provides protection. So they just need another OB to show up in court and say, hey, yeah, they did everything that they were supposed to do, because the bar is very low. So it's very easy for them to be hitting it. So that's the first part of it. As a result, the second part of it you need to know is that stillborn babies, and a lot of this has to do with like pro-choice, like reproductive rights laws. There's this concept of fetal personhood, right, which is a slippery slope, and could result in parents' lives being taken, parents' rights, but also women's lives being taken from them. And we're seeing that in real time now. And I will go on record here to say that I and Push are 100% pro-choice. Shit happens. Nobody knows that better than a lost mom. And so, we don't pretend to make any choices for anybody else. And so obviously I care very deeply about reproductive rights and the laws, and how they are written, and to make sure it's in a way that's safe for all birthing people. So, but as a result of that, we have this whole like culture of, on the left at least, acting like a fetus is not a child, not a baby, right? This is not a person until they're born. And so legally, what that means is that there is like almost nothing you could sue for relating to a stillbirth. The only thing you can sue for, even in cases of very, very clear like medical negligence, is, mental and emotional trauma to the mother. And so, and in most states that's capped at like $250,000. So you literally cannot find someone who will take a case, even when it's a strong. I mean, again, it's really hard for anybody to prove it because of the way it's set up. And then the fact that you can't even find a lawyer to take it, even if you do have a case. And, and so what happens and again, this is from a systemic level, right? This is not individual doctors, but the way the system is incentivized is such that if you have a parent who is showing signs of a low risk pregnancy, right? Somebody like me who comes at 37 weeks and saying, I feel like my baby's movements are slowing down. Like that's a red flag. And they know that, right? And so my doctors, they did give me the false reassurance, like, oh, baby's just running out of room, blah, blah, blah. But my last appointment that I had with her at 39 weeks, they did give me an ultrasound, and, just to be safe. They were doing NSTs again, just to be safe. And so they looked, and in my case, again, because I was low risk, I hadn't had a detailed ultrasound since her 20-week anatomy scan, almost 4 months earlier. So, so we didn't see anything off that day. I think, again, that's something that if we had been tracking her as closely as we did her brother and sister, we would have seen that things were off. But at the time we didn't, because I was quote unquote low risk, right? And so you have a doctor and a patient who has less than 1% chance, right, of this going south. If the doctor intervenes, right, to save the baby's life, save, from the 1% chance of losing them into stillbirth, and let's say that baby ends up in the NICU for a few weeks because they had to deliver early or whatever. The doctor, the hospital, will get sued by the insurance company for millions of dollars, because that's how much a NICU stay costs. Whereas if they roll the dice, there's a 99 and just stick to the standard of care, there's a 99% chance, right, that baby's going to be just fine. There's only a 1% chance that you're going to lose the baby. And when you do, what's the worst that can happen? There's no accountability.
Yeah.
You're not going to get sued, right? So like really what it comes down to is that a dead baby is cheaper than a NICU baby. And that is as crude and crass
Mm-hmm.
as it sounds. I mean, that's what's happening here. And so, after
And
going through my subsequent pregnancies, after listening to thousands of other moms, recount the same quote unquote mistakes that they made, that were the same ones that I made, it finally clicked for me. Like, if we're all making the same mistakes, like this is not the fault of any one parent. Like, this is a system level issue. And like, this is so unfair that is being pushed on us as the parents. So we're carrying this lifelong guilt and shame and self-blame. I mean, it's soul shredding. And honestly, after a few years of this, I just got really pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, this is not okay. And I was lucky to connect with other moms like Anna and my other push founders who were equally as filled with rage. And it didn't help when I met, in some ways it helped a lot. I met a wonderful perinatal pathologist,
Mm-hmm.
He's at Yale. Literally randomly sat down to him next to him at a medical conference, because here I am, a stillbirth mom, going to every medical conference I can to try to figure out what the fuck happened to my child, right? And why this is happening to so many other people's babies and no one's doing anything about it. And Harvey's like, do you know what caused your daughter's death? And I was just like, I'd like mostly figured it out. I'm like 95% sure. And he's like, do you want to know for sure? It's like, yes. So it turns out every time a baby is born still, the hospital is supposed to send the placenta to pathology, and they take cuttings of it and they keep it on a slide, and they're supposed to keep those slides for at least 10 years. So at this point, it was 6.5 years after Lana's death. And Harvey was able to call up my hospital, have them send the slides to Yale. And within a matter of minutes, honestly, because that's all it takes for him, he looked at them on slide and could tell me exactly what happened. And so in her case, it turned out that it was a cord accident. But I think typically people think of a cord accident like, oh, there's like a knot in the cord, or it's like wrapped around the neck or whatever. It's like a one-time thing that happens. In her case, it was repeated episodes of cord compression. She had a short hypocoil, meaning not enough of the protective coiling, and thin umbilical cord. So it was prone to compression. And she was suffering through, over the last 2 weeks of her life, right when I noticed the change in her movements, repeated hundreds of episodes of cord compression where the pressure would build, and then the blood would burst out into her placenta. And so what she actually died of was blood loss. It's called fetal maternal hemorrhage. And so this happened to her, literally you could see on the slide the lines of striations in the placenta from all the times that it was happening. And so it was an intermittent issue, which makes it hard to catch, right? Again, I was having NSTs, but it wasn't happening when I was sitting upright in a chair. It was happening probably when I was sleeping on my back every night in the third trimester, because at that point, the big studies showing that you should sleep on your side in the third trimester, because sleeping on your back, increases stillbirth risk by 2 to 8 times, depending on which study you look at. They were just starting to come out. And like, for me, that was like, I had for years thought, if I had just rolled over that last night when I felt her, I felt weird movements, right? I felt, it was my first pregnancy. I was like, oh, this must be a Braxton Hicks contraction, but it wasn't. It was her struggling for life the last hour of her life. And I'm sitting there smiling, laying on my back, thinking, oh, she's getting ready to come. I'm just gonna, I have to pee really bad, but I'm not gonna get up, because I want her to have this time to practice so that we can get her here soon. And
Sam,
yeah.
So through this like unimaginable, like just personal loss and trauma, you helped others to understand, me in this interview, like how frequent this happening. One in like 65 families a day.
Yes. And that's just in this country.
And you took action. You set up an organization. You became a small business executive director. How has all of this experience shaped your perspective about the issues at play and that others kind of talk to every day about our healthcare system, about our political system.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like Selena said, for me, I mean, it shapes everything, because I am just naturally a very sincere person. I mean, I say what I mean. I say what I think. I'm not somebody who beats around the bush too much. And um, when I see injustice like this, I mean, I can't sit by and do nothing about it. And um, I have the empathy. I feel like I always say I feel like Alana's death like just like broke my heart open for the world, to all the suffering in the world, and to how many people are suffering, and especially people who don't deserve it, who didn't do any, who just in the wrong place at the wrong time, weren't lucky enough to be born into a privileged bubble here in Katona and Bedford. Um, and sometimes even those of us who were get the shit end of the stick too.
Yeah.
And so it just gave me a lot more compassion for, the fact that life is hard. Life is really hard for a lot of people, and in ways you could never imagine, if you haven't experienced yourself. And so, when I see things like children and babies dying in conflicts, and parents being ripped away from their families, the thought, even the stories like of moms who were put in ICE detention like immediately after giving birth, or like a mom who's breastfeeding a 1-year-old. Like the thought of the trauma happening between that mother and that child who cannot be together after having like that, being connected in that way, like makes me want to die. Like I can't, like I feel it. And this is why we started to push too. Like me and my founders, we feel like every one of those 65 families, like we feel them every day, and I can't turn it off. I can't ignore that it's happening. And I don't know how I could live with myself if I didn't do something.
So as someone who's lived this personally, if you had one message to our representative, like what would that be?
That's a great question. Oh, I got it. Why haven't you passed the Shine for Autumn Act, which is in Congress right now?
What is that?
The Shine for Autumn Act was started by a fellow lost mom. It's something we've been advocating for on the Hill for several years now. It is a very common sense, low cost bill that would significantly improve stillbirth data collection throughout the country. There's we could have 12 other interviews just on this issue, but basically, and awareness and a whole bunch of stuff that really desperately needs to be done. And it's a bipartisan bill. It was originally introduced by Marco Rubio and Cory Booker. So if that tells you anything, I think that stillbirth is going to be the issue that can heal this country, because everyone agrees we don't want healthy, full-term, love-wanted babies to die, right? And honestly, the things that we need to do to prevent that are easy. Anna's just going to drop 8,000 things in the chat. Thank you, Anna. Go for it. Spell them out. But we know that at minimum 1 in 4 stillbirths is preventable in the U.S. And that is a very conservative. If we match the rates of our best international peers, we could be preventing up to 75% of U.S. stillbirths. And if we close the gap between the disparity gap between Black and white families, that alone would save 4,000 lives a year. That represents 20% reduction in stillbirth rate, just right there. And so there's a lot of low hanging fruit. And what we're seeing internationally in countries like the UK and Australia, they have come up with these simple 5-step bundles that they're having, because parents like us went to the government there and said this would happen. They're like, oh my God, that's terrible. We need to do something about this. And then they turn to their nationalized healthcare and say, you need to do something about this. And so even though, the medical system might be like, no, there's nothing, doctors literally have been trained for generations that this just happens. Sometimes healthy babies just die. We know now that's not true. And we have the data to prove it. And we especially now can prove that that you can prevent it, because we're seeing it happen in the UK and Australia, immediate 20 to 30% drops in their stillbirth rates when they do these really simple 5-step bundles. And so basically Push has been on a mission. I have been on a personal mission where you say we're on a mission to end preventable stillbirth. We're not taking no for an answer, to both change the system top down, right? We're pushing, we advocate with all the public health agencies, NIH, CDC, HHS, all of these things. ACOG, which is the big medical body for OBGYNs, all of that to try to improve pregnancy standards. But at the same time, systemic change takes time. We don't have time with 65 babies dying of preventable death every day. So we do a lot of grassroots outreach as well, and just tons of media, actually, because again, people just don't even know this is happening.
Raising
and so,
issue awareness to
exactly,
and then
getting the word in
solutions
front of people helps, because if you don't know this can happen to you, right, and you have a concern in the last days of your pregnancy, you're not going to think to speak up, right? Like we're made to feel like we're being crazy or hysterical when we try to advocate for ourselves in our system and our medical system. And so that's why we're pushed for empowered pregnancy, because when we talk to parents directly, we are empowering them to know that no one knows their body or their baby better than them, and that they're the experts on their own pregnancy, and they need to speak up if they notice any changes or anything makes them uncomfortable. And they need to keep speaking up until somebody listens.
So, Samantha, if people want, speaking of grassroots outreach, if people want to get involved and push, I threw your website in the chat. What should they do?
Yes, go to our website. There's several ways you can support. Number one, obviously, I'm the executive director. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, please donate. We need donations. All nonprofits are really struggling right now with what is going on with the federal government. So we are not alone in that. Two, we're always looking for volunteers, and whether that is, whether you're somebody who's been through this or know somebody who has, or you're a medical professional, or you're just someone who just is really pissed off that this is happening to families, we would love to have you. And then finally, we can partner. If you are somebody that has either an organization or a business or whatever that works with expectant families, like, even if you're like a preschool, right? Like, we can give you educational materials. We often are able to get them sponsored for free. Otherwise, they're like very low cost, that you can just, post up around your facilities about reminders, what to look for. We can work with you to run programs for families. If you're a medical professional, we have accredited training for physicians, nurses, mental health, social workers, like you name it, in stillbirth prevention and trauma-informed pregnancy after loss care. We literally just
can help in so many ways.
Yeah, and we can help in any way you can imagine. If you think of something we haven't come up with, we will make it for you. So go to our website, pushpregnancy.org/resources too. If you are currently expecting, if you have been through a loss, or if you're a medical professional, everything is right there for you in one spot, and it's free and accessible. English and Spanish.
Earlier in our conversation, and I'll throw it back up, there was you shared your story just a couple of days ago in the news. I threw that link up, and we'll make sure it's in the chat on the recording. Thank you so much for your just bravery and actually sharing I can't imagine a more deeply personal story, but I think you're showing us kind of the way forward is to see the problem, and as a first step to addressing it. 65 families a day is pretty astounding. Thank you for all that you do and for stepping up.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing your platform. Help us get the word out.
Talk soon.
All right.
So that's Sam, everybody. And going back to the beginning, there are leaders among us of all types and looking to change our world in significant ways to benefit so many of us. It's hard to see that sometimes when you wake up in the morning and see the news, at least for me. When you're scrolling what about the latest day's happenings, sometimes it can seem really pretty bleak. But I hope through stories like these, through Samantha's journey, through the stories we've heard from so many people across our district, you might be able to find a little bit of hope with me. There's so much good work going on. And as for us, we're just getting started. This Saturday, for example, we're going to be having a meet and greet with some amazing women leaders in our community. Ellen Calves, Bedford supervisor, Erica Pierce, Westchester legislator, and Beth Davidson, a Rockland County legislator who's running for Congress. We're going to be live streaming part of it and for some remarks, hopefully to talk about a way forward that looks a lot better than the one here. Again, 3 amazing leaders who I'm just so proud to call friends. And as for me, this guy's going to bed. It's really nice to see you, and stay tuned because again, we're just getting started. Talk soon.